Welcome to the channel. It's Team Money Magic coming at you with some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle draft content. Today we're going to be going over the black cards in the set. It's going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to be putting up the card. Beside the card, there's going to be a letter grade. An A means it's a bomb. It's a card that's just going to win you the game. A B is a card that's very, very solid. It might not win the game all on its own, but you're going to be very happy to have it in your deck. A C is a card that's playable. Sometimes you'll have to cut them. Sometimes you'll keep them. They'll just be a good enough card to fill out your curve. A D is more of a situational or a sideboard card. You're only going to need it in very specific matchups, or it only really works in very specific decks. And then an F is a card is just completely unplayable and limited. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right in. The first card we're going to be looking at is Anchovy and Banana Pizza. It is 2 generic and 2 black mana. It's an artifact food. It says when this artifact enters, destroy target creature. You can pay 2, sacrifice this artifact, you gain 3 life, and it is a common. I think this is a great removal spell. 4 mana. And to destroy something is solid. It is double in black, so sometimes on turn 4 you're not going to be able to play this out. But typically you're waiting for the bigger threats to lay something like this out anyways. There's a good chance you're going to be able to get rid of it, and then you can then pay 2 life next turn or pay 2 mana the next turn to sacrifice it and gain 2 life. Black and green in particular cares about sacrificing food and sacrificing things in general. So I think there's a lot of value in this card. It's a common, and it's a great common. It's one you're going to be happy to take in any of your black decks, but particularly in the black-green deck, it's going to be really potent. The next card that we have is Armagon Future Shark. It is 8 mana in total, including 2 in black. It's a legendary creature, shark or mutant. It's got flash. It says when Armagon enters, destroy up to 3 target creatures, and it's a 9/6. So this card's crazy. It is a lot of mana. Getting to 8 mana is not always a guarantee and limited, but if you are able to get to the 8 mana, and then you can flash this in and get rid of 3 and destroy 3 target creatures, that's going to feel pretty good, particularly if your opponent has exactly 3 target creatures. But even if you can just get rid of their biggest ones, and then the very next turn you're swinging in with a 9/6 and whatever else you have on your board, it's going to be great. It's going to help you win some games. My only kind of like asterisk beside a card like this is, again, getting to 8 mana is going to be a little bit tough. Now, again, if you're in green, maybe you have some ways to ramp into this, and then it'll feel better if you can get it out earlier. But either way, I mean, if you can get to the 8 mana and you have this laying around, you're going to feel incredible to cast it. It's just going to win you the game. It's a bomb. Cycle Next up, we have Bebop Warthog Warrior. It is for 5 mana. It's a legendary creature, 4 mutant warrior. It has menace. It says rhinos you control have menace, and you can swamp cycle for 2. It's a 5/4. This card's very interesting. So a 5 mana 5/4 with menace is a pretty solid card. Being able to swamp cycle it away is good as well. The thing that's weird about it is the rhino part, because it's not a rhino. I don't know how many rhinos are in the set. Okay, so judging from what I can see, there's actually no rhinos in the set. So this is just an interesting. I don't know why it says rhinos you control a menace. Sometimes what Magic will do is they'll give you like a little Easter egg, has the direction of what the next set is going to be. So maybe the next one's going to have rhinos, and that's why they did that. But yeah, it's kind of like that ability is not going to matter at all in this format. So that's kind of interesting. But even without that, a 5 mana 5/4 with menace and having the swamp cycle, it's a decent common. Like, you're gonna be okay to have this card, especially just like a one-of copy. Helps you get the land that you need in the early game, and then if you're able to lay it down, a 5/4 with menace is a solid card. So all that makes it a great playable. And the next card we have is the Cloning of Shredder. It is for 6 mana in total, including 2 in double black. The first chapter says, exile target creature card from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it isn't legendary, and it is a mutant additional to its other types. And then the chapter 2 and 3 both do the same ability. It says, create a token that's a copy of a card exiled with this saga, except it isn't legendary, and it's a mutant and additional to its other types. So this is an interesting card. It is a mythic, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to, you're not going to see it very often, but when you do see it, if you have a decent enough creature, or if you even the previous card, if you swamp cycled that card earlier in the game, and then you're able to get a 5/4, and then the next turn you get another 5/4, and then the turn after that you get another 5/4, that's going to feel pretty great. There is a lot of, pretty powerful things. There's a couple of things that make you discard. There's a cycle of like cycle lands, that plain cycle, swamp cycle, all that stuff. Those kind of cards that you can put in the graveyard and then bring those back. They're all pretty beefy creatures. There's some higher power stuff that if you have the ability to discard something and then bring it back later, you're going to feel great about. So yeah, all that makes this a really good card. I do think there's a world where, you lay this down and you only have a 3-drop or a 2-drop in your graveyard, and then it's a lot less good. And it does have to be from your graveyard, which is also a bummer. Because you can't like steal your opponent's best thing or anything out of their graveyard. But it's still like a very, very good card. I wouldn't necessarily know if it's like on a straight up bomb level because of how situational it can be. Like not being able to get like a big massive threat out of your graveyard with this is going to feel terrible, but it is good enough that like you'd still want to play it in your deck and give it a go. So yeah, it's a solid card. You'll be happy to have it. Next up, we have Death in the Family. It's for 2 mana. It's an instant. It says exile target creature with mana value 3 or less. It's an uncommon. This is an excellent removal spell. There's a couple of 3 drops and lower that are just like insane cards that you don't want to deal with. And we're definitely going to be happy to get rid of them. So yeah, this does have a lot of upside. And it is situational because it can only do 3 or less mana value. But again, there's enough targets out there for it that you're going to feel happy to have this in your deck. It is an uncommon, so you're probably going to want to prioritize it a little bit more. But very solid card. You're going to be happy to have it in your black deck. Next up, we have Dream Beavers. It is for 1 black mana. It is a Beaver Nightmare. It has flying, and it's a 1/1. It says when this creature enters, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life, and then you scry 1. It's an uncommon. So this is a solid card. It's just a 1 drop 1/1. Drains your opponent, gains you a life, and scries 1. Like that's an okay enters ability. And then you can sacrifice it. You can do other things with it. It's got flying, so it's got a little bit of evasion going on, so it can help with your sneak creatures and things of that nature. Overall, it makes it a very solid uncommon. I don't think it's so solid that you're going to pick it over some of the other uncommons or other commons that are even in the set. But it's a good card, and because of the way it's statted, you can probably get it on the wheel or something, or get it later in your drafts, and you're going to be happy to have it in that case. And next up, we have Foot Mystic. It is for 4 mana. It is a human ninja warlock. It has lifelink and disappear. When this creature enters, if a permanent left the battlefield under your control this turn, create a 1/1 black ninja creature token. It's a 2/4. Um, so this card's interesting. A 4 mana 2/4 with lifelink is like okay. It's nothing too crazy. Um, Now, on the enters ability, that is pretty good. There are some white cards that let you blink things, and like that'll feel pretty good to be able to do that. There's also just the sneak ability in general, and that'll feel good. I do think this doesn't really have like any sort of evasion or anything like we've seen on some of the other like best cards that are used for sneak abilities and things of that nature. So there's going to be times where it's just like a 4 mana 2/4 with lifelink, and that is again like that's fine. It's not anything crazy, but it's not an unplayable card. But I do think you'll take it less than a lot of the other cards in this set. So yeah, it's just kind of there. Sadly, it just doesn't really get the job done on its own. Next up, we have Insectoid Exterminator. It's for 3 mana. It's an insect mutant. It's got flying and disappear at the beginning of your end step. If a permanent left the battlefield under your control this turn, scry 1. So a 3 mana 2/2 is not that great, even though it does have flying. So the thing with disappear, like we saw in the last video, it is kind of situational. Yeah, there's some sneak stuff going on. There's not enough of it for it to be like crazy or anything though. It is left the battlefield. So like if something gets sacrificed or something, it works as well. Scry 1 isn't like a super great ability. I mean, like it is a good ability, but it's nothing like the fact that you have to go down something just to scry. And on its own, this is just a 3 mana 2/2. Whenever I'm evaluating cards, always like, okay, like what's the floor of this? And the floor of this being like a 3 mana 2/2 with flying, and like that's it. It's just not good enough to really get you where you want to go. So all that just kind of makes it like a filler card. Sometimes you'll have it, but if you have to cut this one, you won't feel bad about it. Next up, we have Borg Dredge, Insect Invader. It's for 4 mana. It's a legendary creature, Insect Warrior. It has flying. It also has Disappear. It says at the beginning of your end step, if a permanent left the battlefield under your control, this turn create a 1/1 black Insect Warrior creature token with flying. You can pay 3 generic and a green to sacrifice a token and then draw a card. So this card's really good. Mainly the thing that makes it a lot different than its the other 2 disappear cards that we just saw is that it creates its own disappear, right? So being able to sacrifice a token to draw a card is really great. You can even what you can do is like if you have like a food token or something laying around, you sacrifice that. It gives you the 1/1. You draw a card, and then you can start sacrificing the 1/1 to draw more cards. And that's just good card advantage. It is understated, 4 mana 3/2 flying, not the best in the world. But if it can stick around for even a turn, and then the next turn you get a 1/1 body out of it, and you get to draw a card, that's going to feel really good. Again, it doesn't have anything that like straight up, you are going to have something like a token, and it has to be a token laying around for you to be able to get that ability to go off. But there's a lot of mutagen tokens and things like that. There's a lot of food tokens. So there's ways that you can do this, make it happen, and then draw a card off of it. Up next, we have Madam Null, Power Broker. It's for 3 mana. It's a legendary creature, Demon Advisor. It has Death Touch. It says whenever another creature you control enters, you may pay life equal to its power. If you do, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. And it is a 1/3. So a 3 mana 1/3 with Death Touch is fine. It's got a decent enough defensive stat that it can kind of keep some cards at bay. And then the fact that like whenever you start laying down other creatures, depending on how much toughness they have, um, you can get some massive bodies out on the floor. Like if you're laying down like a 3/3 and you pay 3 life, and then your 3/3 turns into a 6/6, like that's going to feel incredible, and it's definitely worth paying the 3 life. I think this is a great card. It's a great 3 drop. It's greatly statted with the Death Touch. It makes it a greatly statted card. You're going to be very happy to have this card in your deck. Next up, we have Ninja Teen. It is for 3 mana. It's an enchantment class, and it enters in class 1. It says whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. You can pay 2, 1 generic, and 1 black, and creatures you control get +1/+0 and have menace. And then you can play a final black mana, and creature cards in your graveyard have sneak for 3 generic and a black. You may cast creature spells from your graveyard using their sneak abilities. So these enchantment cards, they kind of like don't do a lot on their own. It's a 3 mana do nothing spell for the most part when it enters. But the fact that it's so cheap compared to other ones, like we have other enchantments and it's a lot of mana to get them online after to get to like, first of all, it's a lot of mana to get them online and then more mana for level 2 and level 3. This one actually weirdly costs less mana as you go up in level. So it's 3 mana to enter and then 2 mana and then 1 mana. Giving everything in your graveyard sneak is huge. I do think like a 3 mana do nothing card you always have to be hesitant in. We're just getting so fast in every format, like not adding anything of value to the board is always kind of like it's a little sketchy. But if you can really get this going, I think it does have a lot of high upside. I think that makes it more than like just straight up not playable. I do think it's a card that you're going to take less often because of the how it just starts out is it doesn't really add any value to the board. But if you're able to lay this down and like let's say that you trade it off with an opponent for one of your creatures, you're already draining 1 life, and then you can start scaling from there as far as getting the other enchantments up. So it does have high enough upside. I think it's a decent card. Next up, we have Oroku Sakai, Shredder Rising. It is for 3 mana. It's a legendary creature, human ninja. You can sneak this in for 1 generic and a black. It says whenever Oroku Sakai deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card and lose 1 life, and it is a 3/1. So 3 mana, 3/1, not the greatest in the world. You're definitely going to want to make sure that you can get the sneak ability going off because after you get it the first time, you're probably not going to be able to do it again. But yeah, if you can pay 2 mana for it, and it's a 3/1 that drains your opponent 3 life, you lose 1 life, but then you draw a card. You don't really care about that afterwards. If you have to lay this down as like a 3 mana, 3/1, that's never going to be able to draw you a card. That's going to feel really bad. So the floor on this card is pretty low, but the ceiling is decent enough. It's just one of those cards like it'll fill out your curve. Sometimes you'll cut it, sometimes you'll keep it. You'll be happy either way. Next up, we have Pain 101, and it's for 2 mana. It's an instant. It says until the end of turn, target creature gains Death Touch, and when this creature dies, return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. These are always solid. The fact that it's a combat trick, but you can give something Death Touch, and then it brings it back. If you have an Ender's Trigger, that's going to feel solid. This is going to be definitely a card that you have to look out on. It's not as good as some of the ones we've seen in the past. Like some of the ones in the past, it's like not only does it get Death Touch, but it also gains you life, or like it comes back with another +1/+1 counter on it. So like this is just kind of like more generic. But honestly, some of those other ones were getting pretty busted. So it's kind of nice that they're kind of watering it down a little bit. Overall, still a solid trick. You'd be happy to have at least one of these in your deck, and definitely something you have to be keeping in mind when you're trying to block your opponents and they have black mana up. Next up, we have Parameci Colonix for 2 mana. It is a zombie warrior at uncommon. It says when this creature enters, mills 3 cards. When this creature dies, you may exile it. When you do, put a target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. It's a 2/2. 2 mana, 2/2 that mills 3 cards, and then you get one of those cards back at the end is pretty solid. I do think that makes this card worthwhile. You can exile it, and then you get whatever. If you milled like a bomb or something, you can put it right up there. The downside of this is that your opponent does know that it's coming. So like whatever you put on the top of your deck, it doesn't straight add to your board or sorry, add to your hand. You do have to draw it the next turn. So like they could be on the lookout for it or have an answer or something. So that makes it less good, but it's still like a solid like 2 mana 2/2 is fine. If you end up in the right deck for it, you're gonna be happy to have it. And because it's kind of like one of those situational cards, like I don't think you have to value it very high. Like I think it'll will or you'll be able to get it, fourth, fifth, sixth pick in your draft and things like that. But it's just a good card. Like it'll fill out what you need it to do in your black deck. Next up, we have Rat King Burnisher. It is for 2 mana. It is a rat avatar legendary creature. It has disappeared. It says at the beginning of your end step, if a permanent left the battlefield under your control this turn, create a 1/1 black rat creature token and put a +1/+1 counter on Rat King. You can tap to sacrifice 3 rats, return target creature card and all other cards with the same name as that card from your graveyard onto the battlefield tap. Um, so 2 mana, 1/1. that isn't very good. I be in a situation where you're going to be able to sacrifice 3 rats. And even if you were, like, you usually only have 1 or 2 copies of a card in your deck. So how much value are you really getting out of it? I do think the disappear is pretty cool. Being able to get a token is always solid, and then putting a +1/+1 counter on Rat King. I do think, it's going to be hard to pull that off consistently. Like, yes, black white is the sneak deck and things like that. So it is going to happen. And then, just in general, like, it's also if like a creature dies or if it gets sacrificed or anything like that. So, I do think like you can kind of sort of create like a black rat army and, keep on putting +1/+1 counters on this thing and kind of get it out of control. But, it starts out so understated. Your opponent's going to have ways to answer it in the early game, and that kind of holds it back. Next up, we have Savante Romeo times Exile. It is for 5 mana, including 2 in black. It's a legendary creature, demon wizard. It's got trample. It says at the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Savante Romeo. Then you draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the number of counters on Savante Romeo. This card is just great. 5 mana 4/4 trample is a little bit understated, but the fact that like it's not going to be a 5 mana 4/4 because if you lay it down before your combat phase, then you're already going to get the +1/+1 on it, and then it's going to draw cards and you do lose 1 life, and then the next turn you're losing 2 life, so it will drain you, but you're also getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So like the next turn it's going to be a 7/7 with trample. By that turn you've gained 3 life. You've lost 3 life, but you've gained 3 cards off of it. So all that makes this an incredible card. It's a bomb. You're going to be very happy to have this in your deck. Next, we have Shark Shredder Killer Clone. It's for 4 mana, including 2 in black. It's a legendary creature, Shark Octopus Ninja. You can sneak it in for 5 mana, including 2 in black. It has first strike. It says whenever Shark Shredder deals combat damage to a player, put up to 1 target creature card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under your control. It is tapped and attacking that player. So this card is great. This is going to be one where if you're able to pay that extra 1 mana to sneak it in, it's going to be even better. But even like a 4 mana 4/4 first strike, it's going to be something that your opponent's going to have to block. They're going to have to deal with it because otherwise they're going to have to deal with the combat damage part, and they're not going to be happy about that. And again, it's kind of worded funny, but just like, first strike means that it deals damage first. So like you're still going to get your actual combat phase. That's where it comes in. So a lot of people are going to be like, well, what do you mean? Like, how does that even work? Because you've already done your damage, but you will always do your first strike damage first. And then that will allow them to bring back that creature. And then that creature also be attacking them. If you're able to sneak this in, it's going to feel incredible. But again, even if like the floor is you have to lay it down just as it's regular, 4 mana 4/4, that's still a very great card. It's another bomb. You're going to be very happy to have it. Sacrifice. Next up, we have Shredder Unrelenting. It is for 5 mana. You can also pay its sneak cost, which is 3 mana and 1 black. It's a legendary creature, Human Ninja. It has Death Touch. It says whenever Shredder enters or attacks another target creature you control gains Death Touch until end of turn. It is a 6/4. So 5 mana 6/4 is an okay static creature. It does have Death Touch. Now again, it is a little. A lot of times with Death Touch is actually better if they have more toughness than attacking power because it means that your opponent's going to have to block them with more things. 4 toughness isn't necessarily enough to where like they'll need to block it with more than 1 creature. Sacrifice, even so, it is a good attacker, and the fact that it gives something else that touch in it whenever it attacks, it's when it enters and when it attacks. So like even if you just have to lay it down for the 5 mana, because you don't have a good sneak in, you will then be able to get in with a good attacker because you're giving it Death Touch. They're not going to want to block whatever it is that you give Death Touch to. All that makes it a solid uncommon. You'll be very happy to have this. It's going to go great in those sneak decks, but it's also just a great topping curve to kind of fill out your deck. Next up, we have Shredder's Armor. It is for 2 mana. It's an artifact equipment and uncommon. A quick creature gets +2/+1. When this equipment enters, attach it up to 1 target creature you control. Equip, sacrifice another non-land permanent, activate only once each turn. So this is a sacrifice outlet. It's a good one. The fact that it's a 2-drop that when it enters, you can go ahead and equip it to something for free. That's really solid. So like there's a lot of 1-drops in this set, like good 1-drops. And then if you make them even bigger the next turn with this, that's going to feel great. Being able to sacrifice stuff, particularly in like the green black, is going to be really easy to do. But even in like blue black, which I don't really think is like a theme of this or anything, but even in like if you end up in like a weird blue black deck, there's a lot of mutagen tokens and stuff like that as well. So yeah, all that makes this a very solid card. You're going to be happy to have at least one of these in your deck, and it's so cheap and it's so easy to get online. There's a lot of payouts for sacrifice, so it's very solid and common. Be happy to have it. Next up, we have Shredder's Revenge. It is for 3 mana. It is a sorcery. It says choose one. Target player discards 2 cards, or target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. It is a common. So discard abilities in limited are not all that great. However, this one being able to let you choose a mode makes it a lot better. Because if you're in a situation where you need to draw cards, you're trying to find answers, losing the 2 life to draw 2 cards is well worth it. Or if you're in an answer where like you're kind of snowballing towards the game, your opponent only has 3 cards in hand, or they only have 2 cards in hand, and you're able to just get rid of both those cards that they have in their hand, that's going to absolutely crush their soul. And that's what Black likes to do. So, I think it's a solid common. You're going to be okay to have one of these in your deck. If it doesn't end up making the cut, it's not going to be a huge deal, but you are going to be happy to have this, at least one copy. Next up, we have Shredder's Technique. It is for 3 mana. It is a sorcery. You can also sneak it in for 1 black generic. It says destroy target creature or enchantment. If an enchantment was destroyed this way, you lose 2 life. So this is really great. Paying 3 mana to destroy something is awesome, whether it's a creature or an enchantment. And then, if it's an enchantment, you lose the 2 life, no big deal. You're happy to pay the 3 mana for that. Now, if you're able to sneak this in, that's going to feel even better. You're going to be very happy to do that. I think this is an uncommon that you can take pretty highly. Being able to remove something for such a cheap cost potentially is going to be huge. And then again, even if you have to pay the 3, that's not terrible. You're still going to be happy. Next, we have Southwind Avatar. It is for 4 mana. It is a Snake Spirit Avatar. It has Death Touch. It says whenever another creature you control dies, you gain life equal to its toughness. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life, and it starts out as a 3/4. So this is a great card. 4 mana, 3/4 with Death Touch. Like, that's perfectly fine statted because of the Death Touch ability. And then the fact that whenever you gain a life, your opponents lose a life. And whenever a creature you control dies, you gain life equal to its toughness. And, there's a lot of cards that have higher toughness in this set. So, that's going to feel really, really good. It's a good card. It can help you stabilize. It's going to make your opponent second guess coming in and attacking to you. I think this is another great card for Black. Might not necessarily be a bomb, but I'd say it's pretty close to one. Like, you're going to be very happy to have this card. Except we have Splinter Hamato Yoshi. It is for 2 mana. It is a legendary creature, Mutant Ninja Rat. You can sink it in for 1 black mana. It has Menace. It says other ninjas you control get +1/+1. It is a 1/3. So there are a decent amount of ninjas in this. This is going to go great in your black-white sneak decks because that's where ninjas are all over the place. It has Menace, which is great. So, even if you just have to lay it down as a 2-drop, a 2 mana 1/3 with Menace is solid. The fact that it's a Lord, it gives all your other ninjas +1/+1. Like, that's going to feel great. I think it's a great uncommon. You're going to be happy to have this in your deck. Next up, we have Splinter's Technique. It is for 4 mana. It's a sorcery. You can also sneak it in for 1 generic and a black. It says search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, then shuffle. This is not here for limited. It's just an F. Unfortunately, you just tutor effects are not that good. Even if you only have to pay the 2 mana to do it, what are you even really getting? There might be a situation where you have an insane bomb that you just want to get out there. But it's just not worth it. There's so many other ways to get to it. You'd rather do the card draw, let the game go out long. If you're in black already, you have ways to remove their opponent's creatures and just kind of draw out the game until you can get to your bomb. This just kind of takes up a slot and it's unnecessary. So yeah, because of that, it's just kind of an unplayable card. Don't let it trick you. A lot of people get confused with tutors because they think, it's great because it's a tutor, and in every other format it is great, but just unfortunately not in limited. You can pass on this one. Next up, we have Squirreloids. It is for 1 black mana. It's a Death Touch. It has 1/1. It's a Squirrel Mutant. This is solid. There's not really too much to talk about. It's a 1-costed 1/1 with Death Touch. We've seen these in the past. They always play great. They help you stabilize in the early game. In the late game, you're okay with trade it off with something bigger, or you can stack it when you no longer need it, especially in black, to get some sort of advantage off of it. It's a great 1-drop, and it's a common, so you're going to be able to get it pretty late in the drafts. Except we have Stomp by the Foot. It's for 2 mana. It's an instant. You can also pay a kicker cost. That means you sacrifice an artifact or creature. Kicker is an additional thing that you can do. So yeah, this one you have to sacrifice an artifact or a creature. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. If this spell was kicked, that creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn instead. You're going to be very happy with this in either mode. Like I said, in green and black in particular, because they care about sacrificing things anyways, that's going to be fine. But even if you just are a 2 mana that gives something -2/-2, you can wipe out a lot of things, or you can make your attack seem a lot better and be able to take something of theirs out because of reducing its power and toughness. So yeah, all that makes it a solid common. You'll be happy to have this in your deck. Next up, we have Super Shredder. It is for 2 mana. It's a legendary creature, mutant ninja human. It's got menace. It says whenever another permanent leaves the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Super Shredder. It starts out as a 1/1. So 2 mana 1/1s that have menace to start are like not that great. Still, there is a way to make this bigger by sacrificing other things or by, whenever another permanent like sneaking stuff in. Now the thing is that makes this harder is because like usually like you're going to want your menace creatures to be the ones that you use to get sneak off because it's going to be harder to block those. And like obviously if you put this back into your hand, you don't get that ability. So all that makes it way worse. I think it's going to be too situational. Like if you're in top deck mode and you get this and you just have nothing to sacrifice and no way to sacrifice stuff and you're just laying down a 2 mana 1/1 with menace, that's going to feel really bad. So like the floor on this is awful. There is a somewhat decent upside, but like even with being in like a sacrifice heavy deck or things like that, or having ways for things to leave the battlefield through sneak or just through like combat stuff, like I just don't see this getting too massive or too out of hand before your opponent finds a way to deal with it. And the last card we have is Tunnel Rats. It is for 2 mana. It is a rat. You can pay 4 generic and a black to return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield tap, and it is a 2/2. So a recurring card is always solid. A 2 mana 2/2 is great. And the fact that you can do this at instant speed, you can do it at your opponent's end step. You can just keep bringing it back, untapping it, leaving it back. There's been cards like this in the past. They always end up playing well. It's just a way to like kind of stall at the board if you and your opponent are in like a stall state and they keep on finding a way to attack in but you're still laying out your 2/2 until you can find, you're in black. So, if you can find the ways to remove their big threats and then you can slowly start to take back over the game. So yeah, all that makes it a solid common. You're going to be okay to have it in your deck. All right, that is going to wrap us up for black. Be on the lookout for the next one. We'll be going over all the red cards in the set. If you like the content, be sure to like and subscribe. Everything that you do helps the channel grow and helps me become a better Magic player along the way. I really appreciate you taking out the time to look at this video. I hope you have massive success, and I hope this helps you out at your pre-release and in your drafts and things of that nature. So be on the lookout for our next one, and I will see you all then.